and welcome to the Black Hat Bushcraft channel. This afternoon I wanted to give you a look at a simple repair kit that I keep with me in my pack. And these are just a few simple tools and items that I can use to maintain my kit. Most importantly, these are the items that I use to maintain my tools, such as my knife, my axe for the most part. These are items that I have time tested and kind of refined over time, and these are the things that I found that work best for me. So stick with me and let's take a look at this simple toolkit. Maybe it'll give you some ideas of what to carry to keep your blades sharp and your gear in top repair. So the first item in this kit is a Sami inspired sewing kit. I made this many years ago, and basically all it is a little leather tube with corks in either end, and when you access it you have here some sewing needles, safety pin, some small diameter bank line, and even some artificial sinew. Just the bare essentials that you would need to sew up any cloth, whether it be your clothing or your tarp or your backpack or whatever. You could use these items to sew up, at least to make a good field repair until you could get home and make a more substantial repair. But just a simple kit and minimal items that you can use again to repair whatever cloth gear that may get damaged while you're in the field. Most of the remaining items in this kit are really dedicated towards tool maintenance, such as my knives and axes. And the main item that I carry to keep my blade sharp is this Fall Niven CC4 stone. This is a 4-inch handheld sharpening stone, and it is ceramic on both sides. This is a more aggressive ceramic, and this is a fine tuning ceramic. And a lot of times I'm kind of uptight about my knives. I like to keep them hair popping sharp, so at least once a day I will touch up my knives, and I do that so that I don't ever have to really sharpen my knives. I just kind of keep them honed and touched up along the way, and so this is perfect for that. The problem with the ceramic rod is when you sharpen a Scandi grind knife over time, it can slightly change the geometry. It's not a huge deal, but this allows me to maintain that flat edge. It's great for Scandi grind knives, and I've said this many times, I tend to prefer Scandi grind knives for the most part when I'm in the woods, such as a Mora, a PKS, and even some of my WC knives that are Scandi grind knives. This is great for those. It's just to keep it honed up. I do carry a strop, which I'll talk about in a minute, but this to me is the ideal stone. I don't need something really aggressive in the field because I touch my knife up at least daily, if not multiple times in the day, depending on how much I use it. I have a more aggressive side here, and then I have a fine tuning side here, which is what I use the most. So at the end of the day, I will take my knife and just kind of touch over this thing a few times until it feels hair popping sharp, and that's how I maintain my knife in the field. Also, the way Fall Niven makes this is they turn one side of this little leather pouch to the rough side of the leather, and this is the smooth side. So this works as an improvised strop if you needed that. So just a great stone, and I'll talk about that again in just a bit. Now the next item that I have is a small ceramic rod, and I know because I have the ceramic stone, I shouldn't need the ceramic rod. However, depending on the knife that I'm honing, sometimes I prefer this rod. I'll give you an example. I carry a lot of times a Swiss Army knife, and for me, I just seem to get a better edge when I use the ceramic rod with this Swiss Army knife even than when I use that flat stone. So I really like using that. Also, when I'm carrying knives like my WC knives that have multi-grinds on them, sometimes I get the best results when I just use a round ceramic rod. So depending on the blade that I'm carrying, this may be the better option. So I like having that flat Fall Niven stone, and I like having the round rod too, and that's a pretty small package to carry, so it doesn't bother me to have both because it offers me that flexibility. It also gives me the ability to use one should the other get broken. I just keep that rod wrapped up in an oily cloth here inside that pouch to help protect it. And the next item I have here is another great item to use for honing your blades. This is just a small handmade strop, another thing that I put together. It's just a little piece of pine wood with a about 1/2-inch piece of leather attached and loaded with a nice stropping compound. And when I'm working with something like a carving knife or my Moras, even my PKS knives that have the Scandi grinds, this is just a perfect little tool to give those things a quick touch up in the field without having to carry a larger paddle strop. I have some really nice strops at home for doing this when I'm there and I have time, but for just a quick touch up in the field, something like this is ideal, and it fits perfect with this kit. Easy to make, doesn't cost much, and again, will keep those edges polished out and honed out so that they perform at their best when you're out in the field. And the last item I have in this kit is just a small tin of fixin' wax, and this is my own recipe, which I made on video many years ago. And I like to use this on all of my gear. If I'm using a leather sheath, or even when I have knives like this PKS Kephart, I like to put wax on those wood handles when I'm cleaning up my knife. Whenever I touch it up at the end of the day, I'll just give it a little rub down with some of that wax. It helps seal the wood, keep moisture and things like that out, prevent weathering of the wood. I'll use it to coat my blade when I'm in the field just to prevent rusting, especially if it's wet outside or there's a lot of moisture. It'll prevent from moisture getting to that blade. I like to use it on, of course, my leather, like on my sheath. So I'll rub the sheath down and it'll help to seal out moisture as well. Basically, every part of your kit, you can use this. I use it for chapstick, I'll use it for skin protectant or whatever is needed. So I keep that in there because it is definitely a good repair item and helps maintain my kit. Now that I've shown you all the different elements I'm carrying in this kit, I wanted to give you a quick tutorial on how I like to use this CC4 stone. And the first and most obvious way that you might use it is to lay it on a flat surface like a stump anvil or table or whatever you have, and just use it like a traditional sharpening stone as you would any other Japanese water stone or whatever. However, with this particular stone, I found that because of the size of it, I can feel the interaction between the knife and the stone better and get better results if I just hold it in my hand. And when you hold this, I hold it with my thumb and my middle finger. And I'll sometimes point the other two fingers up there as well, but really thumb and middle work best for me. And the key to that is to make sure that your fingers are down below the sharpening surface. If your finger's sticking up over the edge, chances are you're going to cut yourself. But if you hide your fingers down below that surface, you can use this very safely. The key to using any stone, especially with a Scandi grind knife, is to mate the bevel of the knife to the stone. And you can see right now there's a little shadow between the blade and the stone. All I do is I tilt until that goes away, and I can feel on a Scandi grind knife, you can just feel those two mate together even if you can't see it. And now the idea is to run the stone almost like think an onion. You're cutting the skin off the onion. All right, obviously you're not removing anything from the stone, you're removing metal from your blade. But that's the idea. It's like you're going to cut just a very fine sliver off of the stone. The important thing is, again, that feel. You can feel that the bevel of the knife is in contact with the stone the whole way. When you get down to the curved tip of the blade, that's where some people have problems. So you kind of just lift the handle a little bit, and you can see that bevel maintaining right through here. On this stroke going away from me, I really have to use my feel more. So that's why I put my finger on the blade, and I can feel when those two meet. You'll be able to see it on camera possibly, but I can feel it meet. And now from there, maintain that and just do alternate strokes. Now when I'm doing this in the field, I'm always honing my knife. I'm not sharpening my knife, so my knife is already fairly sharp and I'm just trying to get that razor edge back on it. So I just do alternate strokes. If you were trying to sharpen your knife, you'd probably go with the more aggressive side of this stone and remove more material. But already that thing is, yeah, it's already biting into my thumbnail. This one was actually doled out pretty good. One of my Pathfinder youth students had worked on it a little bit, so it needs touching up. That's it. I lay it on the stone, tilt until I feel that bevel meet or see that bevel meet, and now skin just a small amount off of that stone. In a very short amount of time, you can bring back a very keen edge with not a whole lot of effort using this simple stone. Once I finish using the CC4, if I'm not 100% satisfied, that's a good time for me to get out this little strop. And I hold it in the same way that I hold that CC4. And this is basically the reverse motion of the sharpening. Once again, we have that space between our bevel and the leather here. So I tilt that down just to take up that space, as you can see. You can feel it and you can see that on at least one side. And now, keeping that bevel in contact with that leather, I just slide away. Now I'll put it on the other side. Again, I put my finger on it here and tilt until I feel it, and just use that finger to press down, keeping that even pressure. You can really feel this. Once you practice doing this a bit, you can feel what you're doing. And even when you can't see as well, or even if it's dark outside, you can still tell what you're doing. And that's it. I'll just give it a few strokes. I don't like to over strop my knives. Sometimes it takes away some of the sharpness, it seems to me. I like that sticky sharp kind of feeling, and to me that's more sharp. Yeah, you can see that thing, it's much better now. It was quite dull before, but it'll shave now. A little bit of work further from what I've done, and I think this thing will be ready to go back in the sheath. Now, I've mentioned that there's some blades that I prefer to hone with a ceramic rod, and one example of that is a Swiss Army knife. These things have very small bevels, and to me it's just easier to touch them up on a ceramic rod. That process is very similar to what we did with our Scandi blade on the flat stone. Once again, you lay your blade here on the stone, or in this case the ceramic rod, and there's a gap, a very distinctive gap between that blade and that ceramic rod. I tilt it down until I feel the blade meet. At that point, I simply pull it to me. When I lay it going away from me, this one's a little more challenging, but once again I tilt it until I feel that contact. You can see I put my finger on the blade. It gives me a better feel for what's happening, and I slide away. As you do this, once you get the feel for it, you'll start to recognize the sound that it makes when you're sharpening. If it's like a grinding sound, or it sounds like you're grinding your blade, it's not right. You've got the wrong angle. It should be a very smooth sound. And that's where that very minimal edge is contacting that ceramic. Boy, that thing's already sharp. I keep it pretty sharp, but yeah, it's shaving sharp at this point. So that's how I do my Swiss Army knives. Some people really struggle with that small bevel on these knives, and they think that you can't really get them sharp. Key is to keep them sharp, never let them get dull. But if you touch it up on a ceramic rod like this, it's pretty easy to learn that. Once again, just lay the blade down. Once you feel it touch, lightly pull, and you'll be sharpening these things up in no time. Another example of knives that I like to use a ceramic rod on are like my WCs, which have that multi-grind on them. So you can see this thing starts out as a Scandi and it goes to the tip in a full flat grind. A lot of times what I'll do is just make that Scandi portion here on the end of the rod and just trace that to the tip. I can do this one either or. I can do it on this rod, or I can do it on the stone. For knives that are full Scandis though, I tend to prefer the stone for that. It just seems to be easier to maintain that bevel. But that's basically it with the ceramic rod. It's just like using a stone, it's just that you're using a round rod. Once I finish honing up any knife, I like to get just a little bit of this wax here on my finger, and then I'll just rub it on the blade carefully, making sure to go away from the blade, and just get that thing coated down with some wax. If I have a wooden handle, I'll go ahead and touch up the wood as well. If my sheath needs it, I'll touch up the leather. And then I have that cloth that I use to wrap up the ceramic rod, and I can just take off the excess. Or I can rub that into my hands if the skin's getting dry, whatever. So that fix and wax is the final dressing before my knife goes back in the sheath, at least when I'm in the field. If I'm at home, I may use mineral oil or some other treatment, but in the field I just go with this simple fix and wax, and it does great. Alright, so you can see with some minimal supplies that you're able to maintain your kit, at least in the short term, if you have a few bases covered. In this kit, as I showed you, I have the ability to sew and repair cloth. I have the ability to protect and preserve my leather and wood, and I can keep those metal edges sharp and preserved. So those are really the main things that you need in a repair kit. Whether you choose the same items as me or not, and as you saw, most of this stuff are things that I actually put together or made in some fashion or form myself. You can do that if you're at all handy, or you can purchase some items, but choose what best fits you so that you can repair cloth, so that you can protect and preserve your leather and wood and keep your metal edges sharp. Remember, a lot of people tell you that this is the way or that's the way, but find what works for you, whether it's a flat stone, a ceramic rod, whatever. As long as your knife is sharp enough to do what you need it to do and you're satisfied, that's the right way. Whether you're stropping and you're using a Scandi, or whether you're using a ceramic rod with a full flat or whatever, again, as long as your tool is performing up to your standards, then that's the right way for you. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. I hope this is giving you some ideas. I hope that y'all will stick around. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you click the subscribe button. and I will be back again very soon with another video. Until that one, you guys take care, be safe, God bless. Once again, if you guys are interested in the gear that you've seen me use, all of those items will be linked down below in the description box. I have several affiliate pages that you can purchase this gear from. Of course, if you use my affiliate links, I do benefit from that. It is a small percentage that comes back to me, but it is at no additional cost to you. So if you use those links, I greatly appreciate it. Many of you have, and I thank you for that support.